In this video we're going to take a look at RustScan, which is advertised as an enhancement for NMap. I did a video on NMap a couple of months ago which was quite detailed, so I'm going to try to repeat as little as possible, but at the end of that video I did mention RustScan briefly, and I just wanted to come back and do a video now that I've had a chance to take a look at it and have a look at the features, and we can see how to install it, how to use it and things like that. I didn't really see too many videos out on RustScan. I did see one by DarkSec where he goes through the RustScan Try Hack Me room, which was a very good video, very clearly explained, and goes through kind of all these questions, which I would recommend checking out. The best way to learn things is to get straight into the practical side of things, go and try and install it and play around with it. So that option's here. I'm not going to go through this because I think he covered everything from that room in his video, but I'm just going to try and maybe give a bit more of a overview of the tool and some of my thoughts on it and demonstrate how to use it. So just before we jump into RustScan, I want to talk a little bit about my current setup. Whenever I was doing my OSCP a few years ago, I was looking for the most efficient way to enumerate the networks, and I found that NMap was pretty slow if you wanted to scan all TCP and UDP ports, and Masscan was an alternative, which it doesn't mention it here, but let me go back for speed. Okay, I remember some claims saying that it could scan the internet in 6 minutes, Masscan, compared to NMap. I'm not really too sure exactly what the speed difference is, but I did notice that it is a lot faster for finding out which ports are open in terms of all the TCP and especially the UDP ports. NMap is really slow with UDP. So the setup that I've used the past couple of years really is to run Masscan on all TCP and UDP ports just to find out which ones are open, and then to feed those into NMap to run a more detailed scan. So I'm just going to my GitHub here because I created a very basic Python script whenever I was doing the OSCP, which essentially will first we run Masscan and we write the results into masscan.txt, and this will basically just read in all of the TCP and UDP ports and then feed them into NMap. So you can see some comments up here on how we would do that. So we'll run Masscan and feed the results into mscan.txt, and then we can run this script. This is set up to because obviously in the OSCP you have a lot of different. It's not just one IP address. Like if you're doing Try Hack Me or Hack the Box or something like that, you have a full network. So in this case, this is set up to be able to loop through all of your open IP addresses, all of the boxes that you find on the network. Let me just demonstrate this. I'm probably talking a little bit too much without showing how it works. So I have an alias set up. Let me grep mscan from bash aliases, and you can see what I've got set up here. So I have mscans and nmaps, and basically mscans will run all 65,000 UDP and TCP ports on the IP address we provide. It's set to ton0 here. This is basically because I'm normally using a Hack the Box VPN on this adapter, and then we feed the results into mscan.txt, and then we can just run nmaps, and nmaps will use that Python script that I just showed there to create another file called nmap.txt with a list of the ports in a format that NMap can run them in, can take them in, and then it's just going to run through. It's going to do I've probably got too many flags here, but UDP, it's going to do the default scripts. We've got stealth there, service enumeration, OS detection. Probably a bit overkill, but it'll do that, and then it'll remove the files that were created at the same time. So just to give an example, let's do mscans 10.10.10.248. So I've just got a Hack the Box machine here. You can see this is going to run through the speed there, the percentage 5%. If you try and run a UDP scan with NMap, even just like a default check if the ports are open, you'll see that this runs very slowly. In fact, let me go over and just do sudo nmap dash. We'll do all ports like we are there. We want to do is SU. I don't know if SU might just only do UDP ports if we do it through nmap. Let's see. 10.10.10.248. Obviously, if you use a -v or -vv there, you'll get some more verbose output, and you can see the ports as they're coming through. Just be interested to see how long it actually takes to run compared to this one. Let me wait till these are finished running and I'll come back with the results. Okay, that MScan's finished. Unfortunately, it didn't actually give us a finishing time, so it finished about a minute ago. Our NMap scan on these UDP ports is still running. So I'm not too sure whether that -SU means that we only run these ports on TCP. We'll see when the results come back. I think it might just only run all 65,000 UDP ports. So, but either way, MScans or Masscan has run all 65,000 UDP and TCP ports, and although we started it a little bit quicker, it definitely finished quicker than this has already been running for the NMap. And it's produced a mscan.txt, which has given us all these open ports. So now if we use nmaps, we don't even need to provide anything else. It already has the, we have this here, so it's already got the IP address in the mscan.txt. All we need to run is the nmaps command, and that'll run through, and we now have this nmap.txt, and this is basically what it's created there. So it's done the UDP port 53, which is the only UDP port it found open, and then it's listed all the TCP ports in a format that Nmap will be able to execute. So that'll start to go through there. Again, you can use the -VV flag to get a verbose output. So if you were trying to get blood on a new box, on a box or something, which I'll probably never get, then it's a good idea obviously to have the verbose mode on so you can see ports as they're found rather than wait until the scan's completed. But that's been my current setup anyway, so I was looking to try and see if we could find a faster way to do things, and that's why I'm looking into RustScan at the moment. So this script is on my GitHub anyway. I'll leave the links to all this sort of stuff in the description. I'm just going to wait until these scans have completed, and then I'll come back, we'll have a look at the results, and we'll move on to RustScan. Okay, so the results that came back in, you can see here we got 189 seconds for the NMap scan. This is NMaps, where we used Masscan first to find the open ports. So Masscan found those open ports within like 2 minutes, and we fed them to NMap, and then NMap was less than 3 minutes. Sorry, just over 3 minutes. So we got all our ports here. Remember, we're also using other flags here, so we're using OS detection, default scripts, service enumeration, things like that, as you can see from all this output. So all that takes time. If we would have run just all of the TCP ports even with that, it's going to take quite a while. If we do it with all UDP ports, scanning services, it's going to take a really long time. So whether you're using Masscan or just Nmap, you definitely want to check for the open ports first before you run a more detailed scan. Now if we jump over to our other terminal where we had the UDP scan running, yeah, I was correct in saying that if you use -SU and the all ports, it's only going to scan all UDP ports, which it did, and it found, one thing I will say there is you'll notice it found 3 open UDP ports, whereas Masscan only found 1. So that's something which is worth bearing in mind. We actually missed a couple of ports in doing that. But if we have a look at the speed again, this was 326 seconds, so you know it's quite a bit more, and we didn't do any service detection or anything like that. That was just, and we didn't check any TCP ports. That was just looking at UDP ports. So let's go and take a look at RustScan, see what it's all about and what we can do with it. So I've got the GitHub open here, and this has got all the documentation stuff we need. Obviously, the main features here, it says it scans all 65k ports in 3 seconds. The modern port scanner finds ports quickly, 3 seconds at its fastest, and it also allows scripts through scripting engines such as Python, Lua, Shell. It has adaptive learning, so it says it improves the more you use it. No bloated machine learning, just basic maths. The usuals you would expect, so it does IP version 6, does CIDR, it does file input more, and it automatically pipes ports into Nmap. Why should we use it? Well, the main argument obviously is speed, that it's a lot faster than the alternatives. Speed is guaranteed via RustScan, however if you want to run slow due to a stealth, that's also possible. So as we saw there in that case where we just ran a Masscan, Masscan runs very quick. Obviously you can set the rate on it. I had the rate set quite high, but we did miss a couple of UDP ports, which, as is kind of mentioned here, you know, the same is going to happen with TCP. If you're scanning too fast, depending on the network or the server you're scanning, you might not get the same results. They do actually mention here, so they say that if RustScan is significantly slower than the previous version, the integration will fail, and they can't commit any code until they make it faster. Hyperfine is used to monitor the performance and answer the question, are we getting faster or are we getting slower? Okay, it says it is it's just talking here about how we can use custom scripts and how we can pipe the output for further analysis. It's adaptive in that it will fine-tune itself to match the host operating system. As it mentioned, the adaptive learning. Accessible. Okay. I did actually see this. I saw this was mentioned on the Try Hack Me as well. Just talking about accessibility for tools, I guess, in terms of the output and stuff like that, to make sure everybody can see it properly and things like that. Okay, and then we've got our usage guide, which we can go and take a look at. Configuration, installation options. There's our full installation guide, so we're going to take a look at that in a second when we get it installed. Where is the documentation? Usage, community, documentation. So just over to the documentation, see if there's any additional information here worth looking at. It says here it turns a 17-minute NMap scan into 17 seconds. Finds all open ports fast, automatically pipe them into NMap. Okay. We can see here Docker is mentioned, so we can run this as a Docker container. Okay. Features, again, same sort of stuff we saw on the other page. Although I did see here, yeah, we have a little chart as well. So obviously, I'm using Masscan and NMap. You can see here that Masscan is fast, but it's not actually useful, and it doesn't realize it's not useful and pipe the data to the only useful port scanner. Whereas NMap is not fast, it is useful, but it doesn't realize, it doesn't basically pipe the output anywhere else. So the argument is that RustScan isn't useful. It's not useful at all. It's a wrapper to NMap. It's an enhancement for NMap. It's fast and it's reliable, and it will pipe all of the required information to NMap. So the argument is, if you're using RustScan and NMap, you're ticking all three boxes, whereas at the moment I'm only ticking two of those boxes. However, the script that I'm using, although it's a very, very basic Python script, it is piping the useful data, i.e. the open ports, to NMap. So I don't know, maybe my current solution ticks all those boxes. Let's see. And then we've got some more stuff about the usage here. There's the help menu, installation, etc. Okay, I think that'll do. Let's go and just have another look here as well at this Security Trails article, which talks a little bit about the inner workings. You can see here that it's basically two stages. So whenever you run RustScan, it's going to do this initial scan. It's going to find out, but it's basically just doing an initial sequential scan, see what ports are open, and then it'll send it to NMap, and it'll use some different options by default, but you can go and modify those options. Obviously, you can set up scripts to do things for you. And I did actually see in the Try Hack Me room that you can use RustScan with other tools like GoBuster to improve the speed. So we've got some examples here, how we can run a scan, stuff like that, analyzing results. Just want to get down to, we have a comparison here, so they actually did a time on RustScan compared to NMap to see what the performance is like. And their summary, what's very important for me here is that while they've said it's a good addition as a toolbox, if you need more complex configurations, such as changing the technique used to discover ports or to work on different protocols such as UDP, it may be better to stick with what's familiar, the good old NMap. So that's a bit of a concern for me. The reason I was using Masscan is because UDP ports were so slow with NMap. But if this doesn't do UDP, I still don't really have the same option. And the reason for that is basically that they use, I guess, TCP sockets for doing the initial scan, so that there's no way for them to do UDP. Obviously, we can run UDP by forwarding that option to NMap through RustScan, but it's not going to do that initial check to see which ports are open. Okay, so enough about the features and the upsides and the downsides and things like that. Let's go and have a look at how we can get this installed and run it. So we go over to the installation guide here. We're advised that Docker is the recommended way of installing RustScan because it has a high open file descriptor limit, which is one of the main problems with RustScan. Now you don't have to fiddle around trying to understand your operating system. It works on all systems regardless of OS, even Windows, which isn't supported. It uses the latest build from Cargo, so it basically means you're always using the latest version, and there's no need to install the tools, i.e. that are needed, Rust, Cargo, or NMap. So to install, you can to install Docker, so make sure you have Docker installed. And when you do, we should just be able to pull, so you can pull obviously whatever version you want. Let's go ahead and do Docker pull. It's going to pull that down, and then to get started we can run the command. So it's given this command to run, and we can pass in the RustScan arguments, and then we can pass in the IP address to scan, and then we can pass in NMap options after that as well. They do recommend setting up an alias here, so like I was using Masscans and NMaps to save me always having to type out those commands, you can do the same sort of thing here and add a alias. If you don't add the alias, it means every time you run the tool you're going to have to run it like this, which isn't good. So let's just see here, we've got Docker image ls, you can see then we've got our RustScan. We can try and run that. Let's just run it against the same IP that we were just testing. NMap, more like slow map. Runs through. I like the output, nice and colourful, nice and easy to see what's going on. It's showing the ports as they're found to be open, which is coming through very quickly compared to what you might see with just a traditional NMap scan. It mentions there that we can increase the speed by increasing the batch size. And then it's telling us what command it's going to run with NMap. So it's going to run this command. It's using the fully verbose mode. It's passing in all those ports. It's not running any service detection or OS detection or scripts or anything like that. And it comes back and just tells us what service is open on what port. So that came back in 0.18 seconds, very fast compared to what we've just been dealing with. Let's go and set up a alias to our bash aliases. You can go and add this into your, I'm not going to go into my bash aliases, I've got probably some things in there I don't want everybody to see in terms of configurations, but if you want this to be permanent and run each time you run a terminal, then you need to go and add it to your bash aliases and make sure that's set up. Otherwise, you can set this up like this, so it's just locally. So now if I do RustScan, I'll be able to, it's just going to run that full command each time I do that, which means we can also then go and say, let's do 10.10.10. Actually, let's just try and bring up the help menu. We'll bring up the help menu. So this is our help for RustScan. We can specify ports, specify our batch sizes, timeout, things like that. Note that our NMap commands to run need to be specified with this double dash after the IP address. So we would run RustScan 10.10.10.248 and then dash dash to end our RustScan commands, and then we can put in our NMap commands. So there they have aggressive, they have running default scripts. Let's do default scripts, service enumeration, and you could try and put in the UDP here. The problem is it's going to run UDP, I guess, on the ports which are found to be open by RustScan, and they're only going to be the TCP ports. So yeah, I don't really know. Be interested to hear people who are using RustScan. How do you deal with UDP? Do you just do a separate NMap scan on all UDP ports, or are you using Masscan, or is there something else which I'm missing? I'll be interested to hear. So you can see that's come back, it's finished the initial ports, it's running our NMap command here, and you can see that this time it's also inserted the default scripts and the service enumeration. So we can expect it to take a little bit longer. Can't remember how long it took last time actually. It was 0.18 seconds. Obviously it's taken a bit longer than that this time, but at this stage it's on NMap, right? So all RustScan was doing was this initial port check. Anything after that is just going to be presumably the same speed as NMap. I don't think they're doing anything additional to NMap. Maybe I'm wrong, but okay, so that came back through 184.47 seconds, so about 3 minutes, similar to what we saw when we ran the actual NMap scan with the results that came through Masscan, so there wasn't really too much of a difference in terms of that. But obviously, whenever we did that, we had to run Masscan first, which took maybe 2 minutes, then 3 minutes for NMap. So you're talking 5 minutes versus 3.5 minutes there. But this didn't do any UDP. It didn't identify open UDP ports, and it didn't scan UDP ports. So worth bearing in mind. Apart from that, we have pretty much the same sort of results here. Obviously, we can do like RustScan 10.10.1 over 24 if you want to do a network, or 1.2.255, the same sort of stuff as we do with NMap. I'm not going to go through too much of that because, again, I've done plenty of videos on the other tools like NMap and Masscan and stuff. But final thoughts, I really like the output of RustScan. I obviously like the speed of it. I'm very disappointed that it doesn't do UDP, because that was kind of the reason that I was combining Masscan and NMap, was to get UDP. Also, if speed is the main selling point, and in a lot of cases running a scan too fast will obviously cause issues in terms of the stealth, but also maybe not bring back as many open ports, as we saw as well with Masscan, not finding all of the open UDP ports. And actually, the reason that I looked into this to begin with, because I was doing a hack the box machine recently, and Masscan didn't pick up the only open UDP port, which set me back quite a bit, because then I didn't use NMap to scan UDP ports, and if you don't find the open port, then you're kind of stuck. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. Any questions or comments, or if anybody's got anything I've missed about RustScan or any other thoughts on it, let me know in the comments below. Thanks.